Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I'm Barry Rowland, and today we'll be reviewing the latest sim racing pedal set from Mark Haggart over at HP Simulation. Now, over a year ago, we did a review on the PHT pedal set from HPP, and he's labeled his new additions as the PRX. Now, we'll be looking at the SE or special edition of the PRXs, which include a heel rest and some different bits, springs, and things to actually adjust the PRX's feel. So let's get to it. So let's take a closer look at the PRX pedal sets. First thing that you'll notice, at least that I noticed, especially under these video lights, is these are a wonderfully well done set of pedals. They are just drop dead gorgeous. They're just sparkly jewelry for your sim racing rig. I don't know how you can go on about how pretty these things are. Mark has done it again. He always delivers the best looking pedal sets I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of them. They're always a joy to have in hand because the machining, the finish, the quality of materials used, the assembly, attention to detail in the assembly. I mean, everything just goes together. It's just a beautiful set of pedals. This is, as far as I'm concerned, currently the top of the line, the pinnacle of pedals as far as for available for your sim racing rig. In looks, I don't know about performance yet because I haven't used them, but I'm pretty sure they're good there too because I did like the PHTs when I was using those. One of the first things I noticed, of course, when I saw pictures of it, is now he's hollowed out the pedal levers themselves. Now that's going to reduce weight, of course, and that's what this is all about. Mark says in his video that I've seen that these are his new lean, mean version of the PHTs. Now, when we did the review on the PHTs at Sim Racing Garage, the only complaint I had, and it wasn't really a complaint, it was just a personal perk for me that because I try so many different pedal sets that I could see the difference. And if you don't try a bunch of pedal sets like I do, then you may not notice the difference. But these are light. It doesn't have, of course, the PHTs had that big, wide, thick aluminum bar that went across the top of those big 4 aluminum, I'm going to call them footers, that attached everything together, and the pedals were all one big solid unit, and they were heavy. The levers were not hollowed out like this. It was just a brick house kind of pedal set. Very, very sturdy, and I just thought maybe they were just a little bit overdone. Not that it really affected the performance, they worked fine. It's just that when you go from pedal set to pedal set, you start developing preferences, and the one thing I noticed on the other set, the PHTs were so heavy and thick that it kind of dulled or muted the tactile feedback that you get when you're using a pedal set. Like underfoot, what you can feel just by pressing the pedal. And I don't know if you guys experienced that yourself, but I can tell the difference. And that was the one and only thing that I had reservations about for that pedal set. And I can see now that that has been more than addressed here in this pedal set. I mean, this pedal set, you can just pick this thing up and with one hand. And you can see on the bottom the thin bars here to cut weight. I mean, everywhere you look, it's about weight reduction, yet keeping them solid and strong. They've got some hollowed out sections here where the pivots are. I mean, everywhere you look, it's just, you know, the holes for the rods to go through, they reduce weight, and they also perform the function of these rod system on the bottom for adjusting laterally. Just overall, he's just gone through the PHTs and made a lot of adjustments, it looks like, and a lot of improvements. Not that the PHTs aren't a great set of pedals anyway. He's using, if you look here, you can see that the pad on the accelerator is different than the PHT. Now it's longer and slimmer. And I like a long pedal like that because then if you have a long pedal or accelerator, then your foot can slide across that arch and you have more arch to slide across of. You can never have too much arch for that, of course, unless it's way down here. But this is well done. I think this is going to work really well. The brake pedal looks like the standard side of that the PHTs had, but you also had the option to get in the fat brake pedal, and you still have an option if you want to buy one of those. I'm going to just use this one and see how it works. Clutch pedal face is about a standard size clutch pedal face. Nothing special or fancy there, but it doesn't need to be. The back of the pedals, again, gorgeous, finished. And like I said, the machining is just impeccable here. It has every one of his holes, unlike most pedals that you see with a bunch of holes in them, every one of these is tapped with threads. So you can adjust these things around anywhere you want to. So you can spread them apart from each other, bring them in however you want to do. And we'll look at that a little bit once we get to the adjustment part of the video. And of course on the bottom, you can see the bars we were just talking about. And this allows the lateral adjustment. You have set screws here, here, and here, each one of the pedal assembly footers. And you can actually remove the bars if you want to and just take them off, which is what we're going to do here at Sim Racing Garage, because I have my own mounting plate that I always use to mount pedals to. He's using the same ribbon resistors or linear resistors or whatever you want to call those things. You can see them down in there. So, and he used those on the PHTs. They last for millions of uses. Very industrial, nice setup for that. Now, the brake cylinder itself, of course, is all sealed units, so we can invert these and use them in GT configuration. Of course, we're using the bumper system off the slave cylinder. So this is a pull-type slave cylinder. It pulls the shaft back and uses the resistance of these bumpers for travel and feel. We also have the proprietary, or made to his specifications, the pressure cylinder over here. So this a pressure sending unit, if you want to call it that. Of course, Mark has that made to his specifications. Oh, and while we're looking at that, notice here, he's actually changed the way this works as far as where the pressure sensor is mounted. It used to be a brass, 90-degree angle brass elbow, if you will, that connected from here to the slave cylinder. Now he's taken one piece of aluminum and machined it out and drilled it out so that it's all one piece now. Again, it's just a testament to that Mark is always improving, trying to figure out ways to make his pedals work better and even look better, because that's more of an aesthetic thing than anything else. I'm sure the elbow works fine, and there's really no performance improvement in that, but it sure looks good. Anything else we want to talk about? Here's the USB box, and you can see how it's mounted on the brake pedal, and you got the slave cylinder hanging off of there. That's one thing where I don't know yet, but I'm thinking, because you can see I've got it slid over a little bit too far there, and you'll see the corner of the case is up against the clutch of the cam mechanism of the clutch. And if you push that down, see if I can push this down so you guys can see it. But because it's resting against here, the way this mechanism works, it pulls away from there as soon as you start pushing it down. So as soon as I start pushing this down, you can see the top of that clutch mechanism is moving away from it. That is the only thing that I can see when I first looked at him and went over and said, well, you know, it limits how far the brake pedal can go next to the clutch pedal. So if you have a smaller rig, or if you need more room between your brake pedal and accelerator pedal for your left foot braking, this might be an issue. So if I run into an issue, I'll let you know. But it's just one thing I thought, maybe, you know, I'm just trying to think somewhere else he could mount that. But because this is such a compact and lightweight system, I'm not sure where you could mount it. I mean, you maybe could mount it back here somewhere, maybe extend this flange off the back of the master cylinder, but again, that's just me thinking out loud. Anyway, other than that, what can I tell you? This is a really nice set of pedals. I can't wait to get them on the rig and use them. Now, this is the SE edition. So the regular PRXs are, well, these. They come like that. SE edition includes a kit with all kinds of goodies in it that I've already been through, of course. And first thing we can see, of course, you get the extra bumpers, but you get those with the PRXs anyway. And I've already replaced the black one with the red one, and because I had it that way on the PHTs that I had, and I like them more of a progressive, this'll crunch up, or this'll move first, and then this'll move even slower, so it gives you kind of a progressive feel, instead of having just the two orange ones in, and you get just a, I don't know, it's just a feel I like better with the progressive. And a lot of guys like it that way. So you get an extra set of those, and we'll check the durometers on these later. You get these, two of them, and these are the foot rest, lateral foot rest. And you would put it behind the pedal pad and in between these guys, the lever and the pedal pad. And it kind of sits on the side there. Now, I've never used one of these, and I'm looking forward to trying it. So that when you return your foot, if you're like me and sometimes your feet are flailing around and your foot comes back to the accelerator pedal or even the brake pedal or something like that, and you don't get square on the pedal with your foot because you were overdoing something with the clutch or who knows. And this will allow you to push your side of your foot, or your shoe rather, up against it, and so you'll know that you're centered again on the pedal. And a lot of race car drivers use these things. So like I said, I'm looking forward to use it. You can use it over here on the clutch, because you got two of them, or you can even use it on the brake. But the brake might be in the way of the clutch, depending on how far away it is from it. But again, in a lot of the racing simulators, we're using the clutch less and less, mainly for starting and stopping. So it might not be an issue putting it on the brake pedal, but we'll try it different ways and see how it works out. Also, you get a set of springs. You get color-coded springs. I got two red ones because I've already taken a spring out of the clutch back here and put a white one in. Now the white one's the lightest or thinnest spring, which gives you the least resistance. Now the red ones, put this guy back. Okay, the red ones are thicker than the blue ones. And I don't know if you can really tell that from here, but the black one is the thickest, which gives you the most resistance. The red one is the next thickest, which gives you a little bit less resistance than the black. And then the blue is actually thinner than the red. So it's a progressive black, red, blue, and then white. And I've already used the white, like I said. So we can change the feel of the throttle just by switching out the spring, and we'll see how to do that. And also the clutch. But we also get this thing, which is a little spring, and it's a red one. And this one was already in the clutch when I got it, and I took it out and put a white one in. I believe I put the white one in, because you get a white one. This is the extra one. And that goes in this cylinder right here, which is a new way to adjust the clutch mechanism that is not on the PHTs. So I'll show you how that works once we get to the adjustments. What else we get? Cord. Oh yeah, and you also get this hardware kit, which we will use to mount the heel support, or footrest, however you want to call it. And you can see it's already still got the wrapping on the top, so once you mount it, you can pull this stuff off and have a brand new shiny surface that you can immediately start scratching up with your foot or your shoes. All right. Anything else we want to talk about? Oh, again, I have to say, HPP, Mark at HPP is like, just goes over beyond the Call of Duty all the time in everything he does on this pedal set. Even to the point of, you know, most of these kits that you get with brake pedals, or, you know, whatever we get in a kit, it usually comes with those cheapy Allen wrenches that, you know, you use them once, they strip, and a couple, you know, once or twice they strip, and you end up throwing them away anyway because they're no good, and you get a good set of wrenches so you can use them to work on your stuff. Well, if you look at these now, you're not going to be able to see this because it's just too small. The writing's too small, but you might see some of it. And these are called WERA, Wera. And these are the PKL versions of their Allen wrenches. Now, Wera is a professional, well, kind of professional, but a very high quality tool. I think they're better than the bonuses that I use as these guys here. Bondhus, not bonus. Bondhus, which is very good too, but these are not your run-of-the-mill Allen wrenches. And he puts a 3/16 in there, he puts an 1/8 inch in there, and a 5/32. And look, they even got the balls on the end of them. I don't know if we can see that, if I can get some focus here. Yeah. So, again, you really don't have to do that, and this increases the expense of your materials if you're going to start putting these kind of things in to your kits. I mean, it's just, like I said, it's above and beyond, and it's little things like this that impress me personally, that you see in a kit, you go, wow, man, you know, he's really done a great job here. I guess that's it for overview. Now we'll go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and take the bars off of here, and which is no big deal. You just undo these screws and slide everything off, and these actually come off too, these little stops, so you can get everything out, so you don't have to worry about taking them all apart. And because you have to be careful here, you can't spread them out too far, because obviously you can see right here where that USB connector is, there's 3 cables coming out of there, and they're only so long. So you're only going to be able to separate these pedals so far without putting stress on this. So you want to be careful of that when you're taking these apart and then putting them on a mounting plate, if that's what you're going to do. So when we come back, we're going to have them mounted on my mounting plate, and then we'll go through some of the adjustments. All right, the pedals are mounted to my 80/20 profile that I use to mount all pedals to my Sim Experience Stage 4 rig. And of course, this allows me a lot of independence between each pedal. So I really like this pedal set because you can do that, and other pedal sets because you can move them independently is really the only way to go for me, because I like to do some heel and toe, I like to do some left foot braking, which means I like to get as much distance as I can between the throttle and the brake. For long races, it's much more comfortable. And of course, being able to just take a 5/32 wrench and hit 2 of these screws, and there's only 2 here, which makes it even easier, and move it back and forth is very cool. Of course, here we have a limitation, though. You can't get any further from the brake pedal than this wire that goes over to the USB board will allow you to. So there is a limitation there, but I'm going to deal with that because I'd like to see it a little bit longer, but we'll get to that later on when I show you the adjustments, and accessories that I've been using on my pedals. But for now, we'll just snug this back up. All right, so let's get the actual adjustments of the pedals. And we're going to cover on the throttle what is common amongst all the pedals, so we don't have to repeat ourselves and make it a very, very long video. My stuff goes long enough as it is, as most of you probably are aware. Now, first off, the pedal face, very simple. Of course, it's not a 5/32. Everything, I might as well point that out now, just about every adjustment you have on this pedal set is all a 3/16 sized head, Allen head, on all the bolts. And I'm going to use this screwdriver type because it's easier to use and it's faster. You can spin it around a little easier than you can from these nice Wera units that, again, came with the kit. But there is a place for these, and I'll show you. If you're up close and you can't use this, it's not enough room, then you'll have to use this anyway. So anyway, let's go ahead and pull the face off. And again, very simple to do. They're not torqued down real heavy, and you don't need to put them back on real hard either. Always take the bottom loose first because I don't want the pedal falling down from the top. It's okay for that to wiggle like that, but when you get it on the bottom, if the top was loose first, it would spin around and might hit something. Mess up your nice pedal. All right, so 2 little screws here, and these are stainless steel screws. And the reason I know they're stainless is the old magnetic test. I use this tray to hold on my screws. You can see the magnet, it doesn't stick there. It just kind of drops around. This is a nut that is steel, and you can see it sticks. So that's another good way, like I said, to tell if you have a steel or stainless steel screw. Now let's look at the pedal face, or pad, or whatever you want to call this thing. And you can see it's, again, a beautiful piece of shiny jewelry. It's just really nicely done, and it's left some machining marks, so I actually kind of like that. It gets that industrial but also attractive look to it. And you can see there's some ribs left in here for strength where the aluminum has been milled away. And of course we have tapped or threaded holes on all the holes. Some pedal sets come with threads that are like in the middle but not on the sides. But these actually you can adjust anywhere you want to, which gives you a little more adjustability as far as adjusting it on the front of your pedal lever face. And of course you have to maintain the 2-hole pattern on here, so that is a limitation there, but otherwise you can pretty much put it anywhere you want to on here. Very cool. Now I'm going to put this back on. Now before I do that, I'm going to talk a little bit real quick about these lateral foot supports. First off, you get 2 of these with the SE kit, and you'll notice that there's a little difference in the profile here. Well, one is pretty much a 90-degree, and this one kind of gets bent 90-degree here, but then it's bent back up here. So it gives you a less intrusive distance of this side plate to your side of your foot because it's bent back a little bit. This one will be bent forward, or it's bent at the 90 degrees, so this will actually be more proud from the pedal face up against your foot. Which one of these is the right one? I don't know. I've never used one of these before, but I do intend on using it just to find out if I like it or not. So what I'm going to do is go with the less is more and the less intrusive or less proud as far as how it's oriented to the pedal pad. And you can just put this on pretty easy just by putting your thumb back here and hold them together, and then take your wrench or your screwdriver or your hex driver and just kind of put them on there like that. Again, not rocket science here, pretty easy to do, and you can see there is an adjustability as far as how far we can adjust this plate. How far I'm going to adjust it, I don't know. I'm going to just kind of put it in the middle there, and we'll talk about how I like that at the end of the video, whether I'm going to use it or not. Right, so let's get to the actual adjustments of the pedal lever. Now, first off, we have as far as the angle of our lever. And there's actually 2 ways to adjust it here, and we'll do one at a time. First off, we have multiple holes on this plate here, and I'm going to pull these off so we can get a good look at that. Once you get these loose, and again, this is again a drawback of the driver. I can't get it under there, under the brake pedal, and get to that other bolt that's on the side here. Look at it there. So there's one on each side. So this is where this wrench comes in handy. So we'll go ahead and put that in there and loosen it. And once it's loose, both of these are pretty much easy to get off with your finger and thumb. You just screw right out. Now, when they screw out, be careful because this pedal assembly is going to want to move backwards. So once these come out, I'll take one out first, and then I'll put my finger up here and while I get the other one out, because it wants to move backwards like that. It'll also go forward, and I'm going to let it go forward actually, but I'm going to hold it so that it's not all stressed out and it doesn't wham down on that bar there, because that's exactly what will happen, and then you'll mar your finish up, and you don't want to do that to these beautiful set of pedals. All right, so this is one piece aluminum machine bit here that is actually, it's two pieces, I believe, yeah, this one and this one. So this has 3 holes in the side, and this has 2 holes in the side here, and these are actually tapped or threaded. So we can adjust pretty far as extreme angles on this pedal set. I'll use one of these little Allen sets to help me demonstrate that. Now we can go as far back as the second hole, this one right there, and the first hole on the top part, which would be just about here, I think. There we go. So that's as far back as we can go. Now, as far as forward, you can actually go all the way, go ahead and put this in here, to that angle. Just about there somewhere. Now, why would you ever want it that far forward? It kind of looks funky, but remember, this pedal set can be inverted, and if you have them hanging upside down in a GT pedal configuration, then this is obviously necessary to get the right angle back to your, as far as your relationship to your foot and the pedals themselves. So that's why that's there. Of course, I'm not going to be mounting these inverted because of the way my setup is. I'm just going to keep them right where they are there. And I'll go ahead and get my screw started again. Pretty easy, just kind of jiggle it a little bit while you're getting the screw going, it'll go right in the hole. Now there's also, and you want to get these screws tight again, and while I'm talking I'm going to go ahead and tighten them up, because I have a tendency when I'm doing these videos of tightening stuff up, not really tightening it up like I should because I'm talking, and then I forget about one screw somewhere, and I put the thing on my rig, and the next thing I know I've got a loose pedal, or something is loose in my pedal system. I'm trying to figure out what it is. So I'm just going to snug this up. And this doesn't take much torque for these things. Just snug them up, and really that's about all you need, because it's not going to move on you. There is another adjustment, though, for fine-tuning this angle. And that is, there's a little clip assembly here, and this is what's called a spherical rod end. It has a little, like a spherical bearing in the end of the rod. And I'm not going to take it off to show you that, because you really don't need to demonstrate. It's easier to pull the front off and show you that, which is a little clip mechanism, just like on the PHTs. I use one finger to loosen the clip a little bit, and then I use the other finger to kind of wiggle it up and rotate it up. So it's easy as that. And once you have it there, of course, this pin will come out. But be careful again, because the pedal's going to want to fly forward, and you don't want it to whack the bar once again. And that's the little clip. If you saw the PHT review we did on the HPP pedals back in the day, you would have seen this too. And I like these. I'm glad he stayed with this, because I really enjoy using this as far as being able to adjust things. So we have a threaded rod in here between this rod end and this end here. And this end here is hollow, or the screw rod can come all the way up into this bracket here if you want it to. Up to the limitation, of course, of the pin being in there. So that's how much room you got for the rod to move. And it'll also move down in this end rod also a little bit. So we do have some fine tuning we can do, and it's a simple matter of loosening 2 half-inch nuts here, and those are locking nuts, and once that is done you can just screw it to your heart's content. But I'm going to leave it where it is, because that's where I like it right now. So we just, easy enough to put the pin back in, kind of jiggle it around a little as you're moving the pedal, and just press it back down, and you're done. Very cool, very easy. I love this pedal set as far as easy to make adjustments to it. Alright, so now let's talk about the tension, or the spring back here, how we're going to adjust that. And what we'll do is we'll pull this cap off the back. And again, when I'm doing this, I like to do like a turn or so on each side and just keep rotating as I'm coming off until there's no more tension on this cap back here, which right about there. So now I don't have to worry about it so much, but I do want to kind of support it as I'm pulling these screws out. Alright, so, and remember this pedal can also come back now, so you have to be mindful of that as you pull this assembly apart. See? So you want to watch it there. Alright. Again, there it goes. Again, the 2 screws, and these are stainless. And I'm going to show you this little end cap here. I think I'll get this to, there we go, it'll stop right there. Again, another beautiful piece of aluminum machining here. This has a bolt here, again 3/16 with a lock nut, 1/2 inch lock nut, which will allow you to screw it in up to this length just about for the actual travel of your throttle pedal. I have it all the way out because I like as much travel as I can get in a throttle pedal normally. This has a cup in it here that's actually captures the spring, the tension spring, and this has some white lithium grease in there. You can see that. And Mark recommends that you keep a thin coat of grease in this cup and the cup over here when you're putting the springs in and out. And of course you can just change the spring, and the SE kit has different springs as we saw before. This is the blue one. This is the red one. I'm going to use the red one. This is going to give me a harder push on my throttle pedal. So this is a stiffer spring, in other words. Simple matter of putting it back in, and then be careful about how this lever goes up because you want to make sure it can go up. There's a little bar in here that this slides over, and you just want to make sure that it will go in okay, like that. Springs back in, housing's back on, and again, I'll just do, once I get these threaded on, I can do it with my fingers here pretty easily, just to get them started. And do this one. And once I start capturing the spring, I'll just do very small turns on the screws, just kind of back and forth. Almost like if you were torquing something down, like a wheel on a car or a head on a motor block. Just keep rotating it back and forth and snug them up, and you don't need to really torque it real hard. And then you're done. Now I have a harder pedal push, which is stiffer, which I'm not sure if I'm going to like that or not, so I'm going to have to use it, especially for long races. I might go back to the blue. Right, so I think that's it for all the adjustments on the throttle that we're going to go over. And next we're going to go take a look at the brake pedal, which will probably take a little more time because there's a lot of cool things you can do with this. So we'll hit the brake pedal next. Okay, let's look at the adjustments on the brake pedal because we covered the pedal pads and all that stuff with the throttle. We really don't need to go back over that. Let's just pay attention to what's back here. This is where most of the action happens. And of course we have a hydraulic system with a pressure sensor, and we have bumpers. Now the bumper system is a great system, more ways than one, because you can do so many things with it. And the first thing I do with one of these systems is, if it doesn't already have it built in where you can adjust it, is I like a little bit of movement in my brake pedal before it actually engages the bumpers and the hydraulic system, which will, of course, bumpers engage, then the hydraulics engage. It's just something that I like to feel in a pedal. And if you just undo this just a little bit, you can see now I've got movement in that pedal. And of course, based on how much that I'll turn it back is how much I'll have before I actually engage the hydraulics in this system. Now, I talked with Mark and he said there's no harm in that. But if you do that, of course, what you have here is a loose nut spinning around. And of course you can't have that because it's more than likely, after you keep using it, especially during a race, it's going to move on you. More than likely it's going to loosen up. Tighten up on you, I doubt. More than likely it's going to loosen up because that'll be the worst thing for you, because as you keep going, your pedal starts getting the travel before it engages anything. It's getting longer and longer and longer, and you're going, oh my God, my pedal's failing. All right, so how do you get around that? Well, it's pretty simple. Just go down to your local hardware store, and I believe this is a size 5/8 screw on here, and a 24 pitch, I believe. But just take the old one down there, and you know they got those things where you can put your nut on there and find out what size it is, and then go look up what you need. This is a safety nut, or a nylon safety nut, if you want to call it that. You can see the nylon bead or the nylon insert that's in there. On the side we just have threads. And what we'll do with that is I'll put that on and let it go on until it is where I want it to be. And right now it's engaging the nylon part of that nut, the threads are. So it's really getting tight now. So I can't really turn it anymore with my finger. I'd have to get a wrench on it to tighten it more than that. So this is going to give me, see how it's still moving before it actually engages the bumpers. So I don't have to worry about that backing out though. So I'll have a consistent play in that pedal before I engage the hydraulics for the whole race. Now, That's probably too much for me, to be quite honest, but all I got to do is twist this down more until I get it where I want, or I can put more spacers in here because Mark gives you like 3 spacers for each one of these bumpers just for that, just for the spacers. And there's a little accessory kit that he includes that also has spacers and some other bumpers in it. And I don't mean the red and black one that comes with them. Of course, we get 2 reds and 2 blacks with each kit. I switched them out because I like a little progressive feel, and that's what this does. The orange one is softer than the black, so as I engage that, it squishes more, gives me more travel, and then my travel starts slowing up as I engage the black one. Again, that's all personal preference, though, however you want to do it. 2 black, 2 orange, whatever you want to do. But when it comes, or at least when this one came to me, it had 3 washers in between each bumper. And you really don't need 3 washers because all you need is 1 on each one, but that gives you some spacing alternatives or options. So I could go ahead and just take this back off if I didn't want that much play in it, and just put a load of spacers on there, if you will. Still got plenty over here, and roll it back on there and see how that feels. And you can see now it's going all the way tight before it does anything, so I wouldn't need that much spacing. But again, this is just an example, a demonstration, just to show you all the different things you can do to change the feel of this brake pedal. Now there's also something Mark sends with the SE pedals, which is kind of cool. If you want even more travel in your pedal, or a softer feeling pedal, which the two kind of go hand in hand, he gives you the package with some more washers. About 3 more washers come in the package, but you also get these things. And got to watch out because they will fly away on you. These are just grommets. If you look at them, see, just little rubber grommets that you put like in a firewall. If you drill a hole in a piece of metal or something, you put that in before you put your electrical wire or cable through it. And these are obviously very soft. So if I took the red one off and put 2 of these black ones on, of course that means I got a lot of space here. It actually comes with 3 black ones, but one of them just got away from me, but that's not a big deal because I have spacers. And I can put these spacers up here so it takes up all the slack, so all I have is threads exposed pretty much. And now I could put my, I'm just going to use this one because the nylon's not going to go far enough on. And I don't want to put the nylon on exactly where I want it until I'm finished reviewing everything, and because I don't want to have to buy a bunch of these. And because really once you engage the nylon for the first time, it's going to cut threads in this nylon, and you kind of want to leave it there because and they'll still work though. Probably for this it really wouldn't matter because there's not a lot of stress on it, or there's not a lot of turning stress. So I could probably reuse this on this application many times as I want, but for something I didn't want ever to come off, then I would definitely use that, and maybe some thread lock also. Right, so we've got this back on now, and I put a little preload on it. Actually, I'm going to take a little of that off so I can have that little movement in my pedal. Oop, a little bit too much. So now I got the movement in my pedal, but not only that, but even when I engage, you can see those rubber grommets there really squish up because they're very soft. But this gives me a whole different pedal feel. Again, an example of just all the different things you can do with this, with a certain caveat, of course. What you want to do is make sure whatever you put on this shaft is completely flat. It's not angled at all in any way. Because if it was angled, let's say this bumper here was cut, but it wasn't cut perfectly flat or very close to flat, and it was at a little bit of an angle or something, and I shoved this on here, and then I put my washers on, put my nut on, and now what happens is when this pedal pulls in, because it's at an angle, it's going to cause a lateral stress, or a lateral pressure rather, on the shaft here that's attached to your piston inside. And if that shaft has any kind of lateral pressure on it, it's going to cause the piston inside to shift ever so slightly, but enough to cause wear or undue wear on the O-seals that are inside this hydraulic system. So you could have a problem down the road a lot sooner as far as leaking hydraulic fluid than you would ever think you would. So to keep that from happening, just make sure whatever you put up here, don't throw just anything up here. Just make sure it's flat on both ends, nice and flat, and you don't have to worry about it. You could even take a valve spring from, let's say, the motor that has valves in it, a head of a motor. You can take one of those springs and put it in here if you want to and use that. So there's so many different things you can do. And one thing I have noticed, though, the more travel you have in this pedal with softer bumpers or a spring or whatever you want to use in this, the more hydraulic feel you get I know whatever that means to whoever it is. To me, it means certain things. To other people, it means other things. But you feel more of the hydraulic pressure going through the system because you're having more travel of it sooner. So that's just one of the things that I like to point out. And also, I have some of these, and you can put just about anything on here. I don't think one of these springs would fit because it's too big. But there is a small spring, but that's too small. But that's for something else. We'll get to that later. And of course, I have these old bumpers that I had left over from, I believe, the HE pedals. These are German, or rather European, not necessarily German. They're metric size holes, so they're not a perfect fit for this shaft, but they're close enough that I don't think it would cause an issue as long as you kept your spacers in between them. And remember, always keep a aluminum spacer in between your bumpers and the nut back here. Anything else we want to do here? I'll tell you what, let's do a real quick check on the rating as far as the durometer on the bumpers that are included with this kit. Let's go ahead and slide this back a little, and we'll take an orange one and a black one. Let's do the orange one first. See if you guys can see that. All right, and it looks like I'm at about, let's see, that's only about 60. I'm gonna keep moving around though, because there we go, 65, 64, almost 65, 64, almost 65. So it looks like it's a 65 durometer on this particular bumper. Now, of course, they're not going to be perfectly the same. They're going to be within 1 or 2 ticks of each other, I imagine. But that's what this one is, and it's the soft one, the orange one. The black one, the hard one, obviously going to be a higher number. That's 80. And yeah, it looks like it's pretty consistently going to be an 80 or so. 81. 81 maybe. So definitely this one's 80. So when you go, and the whole reason for this, of course, is if you have a gauge like this, when you go to replace your bumpers, or you want to change the feel of your pedal and you're looking at some bumpers, knowing the durometer rating of them will give you a very good idea of what it's going to feel like when you're pushing the pedal and how far the travel is going to be on the pedal when you push it. So just a little thing I like to do all the time with my durometers. If you see my other reviews, you guys know that. All right, so I think that's about it. I don't have much else to cover on the brake, except for playing with bumpers, and it's a great hydraulic system. I will show you one thing, though. There's the circuit board here. And let's see if I can get my, there it is, 530 seconds. This obviously has a USB circuit board under this nice cover here that oh goodness, looks like I've taken this off and messed with things enough that I've actually scratched my beautiful cover. Yes, we're very hard on our equipment here at Sim Racing Garage, but there's the cover, and you can see it's got some scratching on it already. Anyway, underneath the cover is what's important, and that is a Leo Bodner BU0836 board. So you can actually add some buttons to this board if you wanted to. But it's a very good board. A lot of people use this board for their pedal sets. It's just pretty much an industry standard that, you know, if you get a Bodner board and put on there, it's going to be a nice, robust board and will work for a very long time. Other than that, don't have much else to show you here. I'm going to show you some mods that I've done to these pedals, but that'll be after we take a look at the clutch pedal. So what we'll do is go ahead and see how the clutch pedal adjusts, which is kind of cool. It's different than the PHTs, and I really like what he's done with it. And we'll just take a closer look at how all that works next. Now let's take a look at the clutch pedal. Of course, the clutch pedal is very similar to the throttle pedal back here because it has the spring and the cup that retains the spring or captures the spring, and we can adjust the tension of this pedal based on which spring we have in there. But we already saw that in the throttle pedal, so we don't need to do that here. Let's talk about the front part of this clutch. And the way it works, I'll show you here, is as we push on it, they have 2 cam arms here and 2 bearings that roll against them that actually force it open. And that's where you get that feel of pushing through a pressure plate spring. And of course, then it kicks back to you. Now, of course, we can adjust the feel with this spring back here, but there's also a bonus that we can actually adjust it up here now, where you couldn't do that on the PHT. This is what the difference is on the new PRX. So what I'm going to do is just loosen this back screw, and I'm going to take this screw out. And as I take it out, I'm going to put a little pressure on this cylinder with my finger and thumb, pushing it towards that part of the brakes, the other side, just so I can leave any lateral pressure on the screw. And you'll see what I'm talking about once I get it out. Got to squeeze it towards there to get the thing to just ride out for you. There it is. Right, and this is a stainless screw, and we'll just keep it over there so we don't lose it. Now this whole thing will rotate out or swing out, and again we can put a little pressure on it to make it swing out easier, but the springs aren't stiff enough to really, or have enough travel in them, expansion, to really kick this thing off in your face or something, or off into the other side of my garage. And inside we see a spring, and it's a white one, and this is the cup that retains everything. And again, a nicely machined piece. We have an orientation you got to be aware of here, with a flat side and a rounded side. The rounded side having threads tapped into it. The round and the top flat side does not. And that's another reason why we want to keep pressure on this thing when we're taking the screw out, because the screw will just kind of sit there before it engages the thread on the bottom here. And when it's sitting there, you can see it's got a little bit of wobble to it. And with the pressure of this cam arm in there, because of the springs pushing everything against it, it can get lopsided on you and cause you some problems. So just be mindful of that. Put a little pressure on it that way when you drop the screw back in. Now you do get another spring. You get this white one and you get a red one. And the red one's going to be stiffer than the white one. So we're going to put the red one in. Now the white one I think would be a good spring for doing heel and toe, because it's very easy to move it. But the red one's going to stiffen it up a bit. So we'll just go ahead and slide that back into this. Very easy to do. I mean, it couldn't be any simpler. And then we'll slide the housing back on top. Put a little compression again against that spring as we're pivoting it back over to the cam arm. Drop the screw back in. Get it. You can actually tighten this up with your fingers. And then what we're going to do is tighten it up just a bit. Hand tight. You don't want to over torque this stuff, because remember, this arm and this pivot point here are going to have to move. So you don't want to bind it all up, tighten it all down real tight. Just snug it up a little. That's all I do. Finger snug, I call it. And that should be fine. Now when you push on it, yeah, it's definitely got more pressure to get through that spring, or simulated spring, of the pressure plate. Yeah, I like that feel. I'm not sure if I'd want to do a whole race of heel and toe with that much pressure, but again, we can adjust the back spring here too to help dial that in, if you will, which is very cool. I really like the way this clutch pedal is set up. It's so simple to change the feel of it. And as an example, I like the way the HE pedals, the clutch on those pedals feel, but it is a bit finicky to actually adjust it different ways. But usually once you get the clutch set, you probably won't mess with it too much. But again, there's a lot more moves you have to make other than you hear. I mean, at the most, you'll have to pull this cap off and change the spring, and maybe change the spring up here, and then you're done. So other than that, there's not much to do to it. So I really, really enjoy that part of this. Well thought out and well executed. Right, so that's it for the clutch pedal. When we come back, we'll talk about the heel plate assembly and attaching that and how we do that. And I also got a little thing I'm going to talk about with this a wiring thing. And again, this is just a personal thing for me. I want to extend this wire down here and how we can do that. Okay, now let's go ahead and mount our heel tray. And as you can see, I've done a couple of different things to this one. I actually have a coating on it now. It's not real abrasive, it's more of a rubbery feel. What this is, the material is something you can buy off of eBay pretty cheap. Well, relatively cheap anyway. And it's kind of a rubbery feel to it. You know, a little bit of tackiness, but not real abrasive or anything. So it's easy on the heels of your shoe, but it keeps it from slipping around. And if I just have the bare stainless like this, my heels slip around too much. I just don't like it. It's not very comfortable for me. So I just put this on there. And it kind of looks cool too. Now, there's actually a lot of holes in this, and the reason is you want to be able to shift this plate based on how you're spreading your pedals out. Now, the hardware comes are 4 different machined pieces of aluminum. You have 2 that fit on the side of the brake pedal right here, as you can see, with 2 screws each. And my little pointer here. Got a screw here, a screw here. Now, these are 3/16" screws or bolts, and you just simply bolt it on there. And you have some adjustment in this, and I've already got mine adjusted where I want it. And when you first put them on and everything's loose, it's kind of fidgety until you tighten things up. And it doesn't take too long to really dial it in the way you want. But even then, once you get it mounted to your pedal tray and you got it sitting over and under your rig, you might want to make some more adjustments to it. Now, there's big 1/4" bolts on these 2 pieces here that attach to the 2 pieces on the brake. And of course, these things are actually what is going to hold up, or rather attach, the heel plate. And you can see here's the heel plate with the holes in it. And he gives you some screws for this that are stainless steel, but I'm going to use some black ones because it matches the black, and I'll show you that in a minute. But the trick here is, once you have these mounted on, what I did was I actually put this plate on like this. Where'd I go? right there, and then screwed it on. And then I kind of was able to, once I had that together, I could tighten, everything was lined up together with the plate, with the screws in it. Then I can actually go under here with this extension on that 1/4 inch bolts under there and loosen or tighten them and get that final adjustment that I wanted. That's at least the way I did it. Probably 20 different ways to do it, but that's how I managed to get it to line up properly for me, because the screws kind of pull everything together when you put them in here. Now it has multiple holes in it, like I said before, because in this position, if I want to go to a left foot braking configuration, then I would loosen up the throttle and I would loosen up the brake and I would slide them away from each other within the limitations of the wire here between the USB box over here and the throttle's resistor or ribbon resistor they use in these things. Now, and of course I can get under here still and hit my screw that's in the 1020, or rather 8020 profile. 1020. It is a 10 series 8020 profile. But as I move this brake pedal, my heel plate is moving with it. So if I move it way over here, at least within the limitations of this wire, then you can see my accelerator doesn't have much room anymore as far as my heel resting there, and I got a lot over here on the clutch. So that's what these holes are for. We can actually just take this and slide it over one set of holes, and then I got some, actually more than I had over. Now you see the clutch is a little short, but I can actually move this brake pedal closer to the clutch if I had a wire extension, which we'll get to that in a minute, so that I can do that, and everything would be fine then, because the brake would keep going over and everything would match up great, and I got a lot of space in here for my left foot braking configuration. So easy enough. It's a great accessory to have. It comes with the SE package. I like it. I could have just put my own rest or heel plate up here that I have with other pedals, but I actually like this one. It's compact, it stays out of the way, it doesn't weigh too much, it really doesn't add a whole lot of weight to the existing pedals because they're light anyway. So my whole assembly here, even with the 8020 profile mounted to it, is pretty light, and I can change it out pretty quick. So let's talk a bit about this wire here. Now of course there are limitations where we can, as far as spread our pedals, because of the way this thing is wired up. Now like on an HE pedal, we've got a little controller box sitting back here, or wherever you want to mount the thing actually, and you don't have those restrictions because each individual pedal plugs into that box, and you can locate that box anywhere with Velcro or something. But here we're kind of have this box mounted here, and we can't really move it around. And of course it's a Bodner board in here with some pins that we plug everything into. It's pretty simple actually as far as what we're doing here. So you can see that these wire pairs are all plugged into these pins over here. We got a whole row of pins on this board right here. Well, and what we're using is the first 3 sets here for our pedals. And we have more, of course, like I said before, in the brake adjustment video, that we can actually use these for buttons. But we're really interested in this first 3, okay? And the very first row is what I'm really interested in, because if I look at it, I can tell that's where my throttle cable is actually plugged into there. So what I can do, and Mark actually has come up with something to help facilitate this. All you have to do, and he sends you this little package here, and I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to do it yet, so I'm going to show you a couple of ways I'm thinking. So all this is a set of 3 wires, and he's already terminated them in the proper poles here, so we can take one of these wires off of the board, and that's how you typically want to do it. Match one wire to one wire, because the colors are red, black, and blue, and we have a black and blue in here, but we don't have a red, we got an orange, so we can just substitute orange for red. Easy enough. So if I pulled off the red one off this board, and you see that's all it is, that little clip there. Then I could take this one and plug it directly into it. Just like that. Now I've got about 6-7 inches more room, so I can move my pedals at will then. So it's a very simple thing to do, and of course I would actually pull this wire out. I'd undo the blue one, and I'd actually do this one at a time first, so that I could plug this orange one back where the red one was. You can see all this wire I've got, of course. It's a lot. Then I would take the next one, which is the blue one back here, unplug that from the board, plug in the blue one here, plug it back in. That way I don't mess up my sequence at all, even though it's kind of hard. There's only 3 of them, so I don't really see anybody messing it up that bad. Of course, the orange one, I don't even know if it was on right, so let me go ahead and push that back on. You want to make sure you get these on right so they don't come back out. And I'm a good example of showing you how not to do it the first time, but then we correct it on the second time. All right, now we got the 2, and of course the last one I'm going to take off is this black one here. I'm going to thread it through back here, and we'll plug this black one in, and then plug the black back in to where it belongs over here. All right, what could be easier than that? Now that I've done that, what I'm going to do is, let me move this around so you guys can get a better look at it. Let's see, you can see in the front, maybe you see it a little better over here. So all I have to do now is, because I've got these attached, I'm going to have to figure out a way to push them through this grommet here, or this hole. Now, I also have a zip tie here, which we're going to take off because we don't need the zip tie anymore. Plus, I've got a million zip ties I can replace it with once I find out exactly what I want to do with this. So we'll go ahead and just snip that off. Toss it in the pan. And now, this wire will actually slide through the hole there. So let's go ahead and do that. Now that we're through the hole and we're loose, we've got all these plastic things we have to put through here. Now could be a few ways I would approach this. I could just pull the grommet out, and if I pull the grommet out, then I'll have a bigger hole. That's probably the best way to go. Plus it'll give me more room to work with. And I'm just using my fingernail to pull that grommet out. It's easy enough. And it'll just slide down the throttle wire. I'm blocking your view here, but bear with. And you can see there's the grommet on the throttle wire hanging back there. So now that it's out of the way, I've got more room in this hole here on this plate that our controller board's mounted to. And what I'll do is just put one through first, and then the other 2 will come with right after that one. And there's enough room for 2 to go through. So now I'm through. So I just carefully feed everything back through. Oops, looks like one came apart. That's okay though, because we're just moving them around for now. And again, when I'm pulling this back through, I want to be careful that I don't put too much stress and I leave a little bit of play here, like the rest of these sets of wires are. Don't want to pull it down too tight. And it looks like my blue one came apart, but we'll put that back in. Good enough. So now I got to get my grommet back over there. And what I'll do with that is push one through at a time, because the grommet's not as big as the hole over here, but it is rubber and it'll stretch a little bit. Now I'll push this one through. Once you clear the big clips and it's just the wire in the hole, then it's a lot easier to get one of the clips through. There goes the second clip through, or clip pair if you will. And now all we got to do is push the red ones through. And again, because there's just wires, after we get one at a time through, the red one will go through too. And then I'm just kind of pushing the grommet back towards the wires over there. Kind of going behind the pedal. You can't really see it. I'm trying to get on this side so you can see it. There it is. Right. So now that I've got that in the position I want it to be, I can just go ahead and put my grommet back in. So once the grommet's back in, now I've got all these wires hanging loose. As you can see, there's a lot of wire here. And what I was going to do is, because we can take these apart, it will, because they're little clips on here. Bring this around so you can see it better. Because they're just little plugs. Is I will plug all these together. I'm going to get some, unplug them one more time. I'm going to get some shrink tape, or shrink tape tubing, or shrink tubing, whatever you want to call it. And a decent size. I'm not going to use this one as just an example I have. I got some bigger stuff. And I'll go ahead and heat shrink all these connections together. Then I'll decide what I want to do with the remainder of the wire. Do I want to put tubing on it, which I just might do, just to cover the wires up so you don't have a bunch of stuff hanging out. and I might put some over here. So there's a lot of things you can do to make this work. But the important thing here is what we've achieved. Now I can take the brake pedal and the throttle and get as much room between them as I want, just about, because I can just push this up against the clutch, and then you can see I can bring the throttle way over here if I want. So now I got this humongous spacing going on for my left foot braking. But the whole point of this is because the more parallel you get with each hip bone when you're doing left foot braking, at least I found, I have a lot less back stress and knee stress when I'm able to do this. And with this extension, it allows us to do it. And of course, now that we've moved the brake closer to the clutch, we'll pull this plate back out. And remember, we shifted it over because we're moving the brake. And you can see now that we have just enough in there to cover everything. Now, if I'm not going to use the clutch except for just running, then I can just go ahead and move the brake over a little bit to get more over there towards the throttle. But this is pretty wide. I'm not even sure if I would have it this wide. But I couldn't get it where I wanted before without the extension. This is a huge extension here. It really didn't have to be that long, but hey, I'll take what I can get. So Mark actually has this available, so you can use this little adjustment if you need to. And I just thought I'd show you guys that because there might be some other people out there who like a lot of room, and the existing wire is just not going to give it. And remember, the existing wire comes connected to the resistor that they're using in these pedals. So you can't really extend it any other way, unless you can order it, especially when you get your resistors, I guess, and you say, hey, give me another 3 inches of cable on that thing. They're too short. So again, an easy way to do this. And of course, once I get my grommet back over here, then we'll just go ahead and put our box bag on, and we're good to go. So that was easy enough to do. And again, a credit to Mark to come up with solutions to some issues that people might have depending on what their personal needs are for their pedal set. That covers it, I think, for all the adjustments and custom things that I've done. And what we'll do next is we'll go ahead and mount everything up and do the usual running in the rig with the pedals, take a look at that, and then we'll get to the final thoughts. Alright, so here we are at Circuit Park Zandvoort, and we're in the Lotus 79, one of my favorite cars at one of my favorite racetracks. This is a real busy racetrack, lots of turns in it, lots of shifting going on, an excellent place to test any new set of pedals that you get as far as using them in heel and toe configuration like you see I'm racing here. I do this more often than I used to now that I have these pedals. It's more work, but it is some fun. If you've never tried heel and toe, as I always say in these pedal reviews, give it a try. You don't know what you're missing. And if you think it's too hard, then just put a little time into it and you'll pick it up pretty quickly. As you can see here, these are some pretty pedals in the light, but you can really pound on them and they just deliver. They do a great job of giving me tactile feedback in my feet. And I said before, the PHT pedals that originally came out from HPP were a little bit too heavy for me and kind of dulled it a little bit. It's very easy to regulate your throttle with this pedal set. Coming out of a turn sometimes, or when you're in a long turn, and there's a long turn coming up here actually after this turn, and it's that long looping turn before the straight, and you really have to regulate your throttle here. You can't just floor it because you'll spin out. So you can see my foot here, I'm just up a little bit, just regulate a little bit before I can really get on it right there, and then come out of that turn and head down the straight. The brake, well, what can I say about the brake? It feels great, especially the way I have it set up now. And you can see the shifting, just whack, 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 so easy. It's a great configuration, the way I have it set up now, if you're going to do heel and toe. The clutch feels just like a real clutch. It feels like you're slamming through the spring in a pressure plate of a real clutch every time you use it. It's one of the best feeling clutch pedals out there right now, which I think the only competition this clutch pedal has would be the pedals from Husinveld Engineering, and probably the Ultimates more so than the Pro set. So as we drive around the track here, I don't know what else to tell you as far as I really like these pedals. I do good lap times with them. They're easy to use. They're very analogish to me. And get a little wide there on that corner. And I really enjoy using them. And I can't I can't recommend these things highly enough to anyone who wants to try a higher end set of pedals. Mark has really done a great job transforming the PHTs into the almost perfect pedal set for me personally. Now I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who don't agree with that, but everybody feels things differently and everybody has their own idea of what the perfect pedal set would be, even though of course we still don't have that under our feet yet. But I really enjoy using these. These are my go-to pedals now. I've been using them for a few weeks now and hammering them pretty hard in a lot of heel and toe shifting and wearing myself out too. Because you can get a little more tired when you're working your feet this hard, especially if you're going to try to do a race this way. It's a lot of work. But these pedals make it feel like it's not so much work. So now, I guess that's about it as far as what I can tell you is what I'm feeling in these pedals. Just overall, everything just works together, I guess is the best way to put it. And all the pedals, the clutch, the brake, and the throttle all come together and just feel natural and very analogish, or more like an analog feeling under your feet. So we'll go ahead and finish out this lap here, and I'll turn the volume back up so you guys can hear it. And after that, we'll get to the final thoughts on this pedal set. Final thoughts on the HPP PRX-SE edition pedal set. That's a mouthful. When I first used and reviewed the PHT pedal set from HPP, I was impressed with everything about it. The machining, the design, the fit, the finish. Those pedals were really nice. With the PRX pedals, I'm happy to say that this high standard continues on. Hell, I like to look at these pedals as much as I like to drive them. But of course, no pedal set is perfect, and everyone has, well, their own idea of just what perfect is. For me, the PRX-SEs have come as close to the perfect pedal set as I've used so far, and I've used a lot of them. And they're currently my go-to pedal set when I'm ready to start racing. It's nice to see a manufacturer not resting on their laurels, even after launching a very successful pedal set with the original PHT version of these. Mark has listened to the likes and dislikes that people were saying about the PHTs, and his answer is to make a great set of pedals even better. Using my dislikes of the PHT as an example of this, I never really could get a good foot-to-pedal feel like on other lighter weight pedal sets. The original PHTs were just too heavy underfoot for me, and I lost some tactile feedback from what my foot feels when using a lighter set of pedals. With the new PRXs, I'm happy to say, this is a thing of the past. The old PHTs are reborn as a more lean and mean pedal set, with more adjustability and just as easy adjustability with pedal width, pedal mounting, and even the clutch action is improved over the old PHTs with the design he implements here. Speaking of the clutch, it's now more adjustable than the PHT version, and it's a very easy pedal to make adjustments on, which actually all of them are. As you can tell, I don't have much bad to say about these pedals. The only really con I can find is the price. At $1,247, which does include free shipping, this is an expensive set of pedals. But when compared to any pedal set that comes close to the build quality and performance of these PRXs, well, the PRXs are in line with the competition. If you're looking for a high-end, precision-manufactured, great-performing pedal set, then you owe it to yourself to give the PRXs a try. I'm Barry Rowland, and thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel.